Every year, thousands of students at Bristol University face the daunting task of finding a place to live in the private sector. When it comes to house hunting, they have no experience, little authority, and their quest for low prices means that they are often willing to make serious sacrifices in quality. I've been speaking to students at the university who have reported a huge range of issues with their housing, ranging from mould and vermin to poor security to neglectful and irresponsible landlords. One group of students I spoke to are having to take their landlord to court over unfinished building works in their rented property. I met with Tash Burden from the university's private housing service, which offers advice and support to students in rented properties and which receives hundreds of inquiries every year. What kinds of problems do students come to you with?
There is a lot of disrepair complaints that come up, a lot of damp. Sometimes landlords aren't abiding by the rules that they should be. They're entering the house unannounced. Often problems with each other and needing to look at solutions to problems within a harmonious household. Deposits, a lot of people struggle with getting their full deposit back. People come to us because they can't find anything because there's so little on the market, and also because they haven't got a guarantor or there are issues with the tenancy agreement.
Do you think that landlords exploit students' lack of experience?
Everybody in private accommodation suffers some problems. Perhaps students who are inexperienced may in some cases be slower to ask for advice or to realise that something's not right, or to realise that just because they're a student it doesn't mean that they have to live in a bad situation. The university encourages in every way we can for students to wait until the new year to start looking for accommodation, but there's so much pressure from the high street to look as soon as possible. If they're rushing, they're not going to perhaps be thinking about some of the more crucial things like the condition of the property before they take it.
Many students struggle with neglectful landlords who are slow to respond and reluctant to fix simple household issues. Hello. I met Georgia, an anthropology student whose landlord has been particularly unhelpful this year. So tell me a bit about the kinds of problems you've been having with your landlord.
So the main problem is communication. Whenever we have a problem, we either get no response or it takes a couple of days for the response to come through. So we've had the boiler broke, we have no hot water, he didn't respond. He sent us an email saying you need to sort out your council tax, and at the end of the email he said, it was like a by the way, for every email correspondence I'm going to charge you £10. That just seems ridiculous. Surely your role as a landlord is to just help your tenants out.
How much are you paying for your house? Do you feel like you're getting your money's worth? So
we have to pay upfront £1,500 every quarter of the year, but the date of the quarterly payment always falls before student loan comes in, so it's really hard to have that money, and he's not very understanding. Like, it's a case of, okay, you have to pay the money now, I'll give you a few days, but then I'm going to charge you extra. It's a lovely house, but because we're just getting no support from the landlord, we're not seeing where the money's going at all.
As a student, do you feel like you're aware of your rights? Do you know how to dispute things when things seem to be unfair?
Definitely not. Like, we've only been living by ourselves for a few years, we don't really know what we're doing. And I feel like landlords can take advantage of that a little bit. I think it's like a mutual respect thing. Like, if you respect the landlord, then they should respect you. But I just feel like there's not really much of that this year.
The cost of student housing is a huge concern for many students. Bristol has some of the highest private rental costs of any university city, and hidden costs often arise that many students feel ill-equipped to dispute. I met Beth, an English student whose landlord last year tried to charge money for damage that she and her housemates were not responsible for. So what happened when you left your house last year?
So a couple of weeks after we moved out and we were talking about getting our deposit back, we got an email from the estate agents with like a breakdown of costs and an amount that they were going to take out of our deposit, and it was quite a big amount of money. They said that it's like a listed building, so they had to replace this tile like for like, and there was a chip in it, and they said 50 quid. So I went back to the inventory report, and I realised that most of the damages that they'd stated on the checkout report that we had to pay for were things that had already been there, I think they probably haven't bothered to cross-check. I think that they probably do it every year, and I think it is probably characterises a lot of the attitude of most estate agents when it comes to student lettings, and they're just relying on the laziness of students not to check.
Do you think students are particularly vulnerable in the housing market?
Yeah, I think they are, because we've never rented before. We don't really know what we're doing. We don't know what counts as fair wear and tear, and we don't know what the usual process is. And also, I do think a lot of it comes down to the fact that we're quite lazy, and especially at this university, a lot of us come from privileged backgrounds. We know that we'll probably be all right. The only reason why I actually took the time to cross-check was because I was in my final year, and I was thinking about renting in the year after, and how I would afford it. And so quite a lot was relying on me getting most of my deposit back, but otherwise I wouldn't have bothered.
So what's being done to tackle this issue? Vanessa Wilson, the SU's student living officer, is well aware of the problems students face and has just launched a campaign aiming to teach students about their rights and guide them in choosing their accommodation. So tell me a bit about the campaign you're running.
My new campaign is called My Rent, My Rights, and it's now officially launched. And it's essentially a campaign which aims to raise students' awareness as their rights as tenants, and teaming up with the School of Law Clinic. And they're going to be having presentations around your rights as a tenant. There's going to be drop-in sessions where you can go and check your contract with the accommodation office, and just basically get you clued up around what you're in for. Where you're living it makes a huge difference to your well-being, and it has a huge impact on your academic success as well. Just being in a comfortable space and around people that understand and respect you is really important. I hope that if I can just help at least one student, double check their contracts, understand their rights, and not be exploited by landlords.
Are you worried about the future of student housing?
I'm really concerned about student housing becoming even more unaffordable. I'm scared about essentially landlords increasing their prices, having lower quality housing, especially being a widening participation student, coming from a working class area or background. I always worried about finances and being able to afford my rent, and being able to maintain a happy life, going out and socialising. I think there needs to be something collaborative work done with the council. So we hold the landlords to account, so there's harsher regulations, and that there are standards that they need to adhere to for it to be a student property. So at the moment I don't think the checks are adequate.
But for now, until these issues have been properly addressed, many of those students on the hunt for accommodation will face similar difficulties with their landlords and student houses.